Hey guys, Samantha Studebaker-Carl here, and I wanted to talk to you this morning about transformational vocabulary. Today on our Saturday morning mastermind, we've been talking a lot, well actually over the past month, we've been talking a lot about how to become more happy in your life and how to use purposeful changes, or how to make purposeful changes to create more happiness in your life. And I've been reading this book, Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And in chapter 9 he talks about transformational vocabulary, and the chapter is called The Vocabulary of Ultimate Success. And the first quote in here, it says, "A powerful agent is the right word. Whenever we come upon one of those intensely right words, the resulting effect is physical as well as spiritual and electrically prompt." And in here he kind of tells a story about how he had an instance happen in his company where himself, his CEO, and let's see, who was it? Another friend of his were kind of responding to this serious situation in his business. And he said that, I'm just going to kind of read something in here first. It says, "Simply by changing your habitual vocabulary, the words you consistently use to describe the emotions of your life, you can instantaneously change how you think, how you feel, and how you live." Now in this section, hopefully I can find it here real quick, he was talking about how his CEO was out of control with rage and fury, while his associate was hardly moved by the situation, and how he himself was really upset by it. And in here he talks about the different words that they were using to explain what they were feeling in relation to this particular event. So in this story he was talking about how his CEO was out of control with rage and fury, while his associate was hardly moved by the situation. How could all three of them hear the same news but yet have such radically different responses to it? And he was talking about how his CEO was using words like rage and furious and enraged and you know, stuff like that. And then he also was saying that, you know, his CEO, he asked his CEO, okay, what does that mean to you? And he said, if you're in a rage, you get stronger, and when you're strong, you can make things happen. You can turn anything around. And so then he asked his friend, because his friend was responding to the situation with nearly no emotion, and he says, doesn't it make you furious? And his friend said, no, it's not worth getting upset about. And he asked him what upset meant to him, and he responded with, if you get upset, then you lose control. What happens if you lose control? Then the other guy wins. So it was really interesting to him how he was seeing that one person was responding in one way, and they were feeling powerful in that way, and the other person was responding in a completely different way, all because of the words that they were using and the meanings that they had behind the words. So one guy thought that furious and enraged was a useful way of being, and the other guy thought that that was a completely unuseful way of being. And so he kind of asked himself what he thought about, you know, the same thing. And he said that for years he believed that I can handle anything if I'm angry, but I also believe that I don't have to be angry in order to do so. He says I can be equally effective in a peak state of happiness. So he started to think about these ways that people use words, and how, when depending on the meaning that you personally place on those words, can really determine your level of happiness, your level of satisfaction in your life, and things like that. So this whole chapter is all about how you can take words and change your state of mind by the words that you use. And for an example, you know, I noticed when I was reading this chapter that sometimes I will say things that maybe like a situation will happen and one person will be really, really upset and mad about it, and yet, you know, I'll say something that you know, is lesser, I don't know what the word for it is, that it's kind of like a lesser upset level, if you will. And so some of the statements that I noticed that I've said is, I'll say things like less than desirable, rather than saying, oh, this really sucks or it's really horrible. I'll say it's less than desirable. Well, so what's the difference between saying you know, this is horrible versus this is less than desirable. It has a completely different meaning. You may experience the same thing, but your level of intensity and your emotions changes because you're using different words to describe those emotions. And another thing that I tend to say is rather unpleasant. So instead of saying, you know, I don't even know, you know, some kind of instance happens, and you know, instead of being mad about it, I just say, oh, this is rather unpleasant, you know. And the thing is that I started thinking about when was it that I started saying these things, and I think that reality is that I find it interesting when other people get really upset about trivial things, or things that I think are trivial. And so I think that part of the reason why I started using those types of vocabulary was because I was trying to make light of a situation that other people were getting upset about. And so I would say things like that. But I never really realized how you can literally change your own state of emotional being by using different words. So I encourage you to jump over to Awaken the Giant Within and get into chapter 9, because it gives you a whole bunch of ideas on how you can change your state just by changing your vocabulary. And as a suggestion, I'll just read a few of these off. Negative emotion expression, say, like, you know, instead of saying I'm angry, you could say I'm feeling disenchanted. You know, it just kind of takes the edge off of it, right? Or if I'm feeling afraid, to change that over to I'm feeling uncomfortable. Or if I'm feeling furious, instead of saying furious, say passionate. You know, imagine what that kind of a change says. If you're having a situation where you're really upset about it, and maybe there's something going on that is frustrating you in some way, is say that, you know, instead of saying I'm furious about this, say I'm passionate about this topic. And so does that literally change your state of mind? I think it would. And then in the same level of, you know, like I hate, change that to I prefer. Or irritated to stimulated, or jealous to overloving. You know, it changes the way that you connect to that situation that you're in. So I don't know, hopefully that was clear in what I was kind of talking about. And of course, if you read this chapter, you'll understand exactly what I'm saying here. And hopefully if you can kind of just replace some of the words that you're using, if you find yourself always saying I'm angry, or I'm upset, or I'm mad, or I'm this, or I'm that, you know, take the edge off of that emotion by changing the word to something completely different, and that can make a huge difference in your life. So use that transformational vocabulary and see if that doesn't change your level of happiness in your life. So with that, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.